Morning again.
Morning, Cindy.
Can you hear me okay? So this is new for me, standing here on the platform. So my talk, of course, is about vulnerability. So, hello. I guess maybe I'm supposed to go back to the platform.
No, nice try.
All right, so I want to start with a question. Do you know how to make God laugh? You all know this, right? You don't? Oh, I'll tell you. You just tell God your plans. You know? Tell God your plans, and then while he's thinking, he's laughing, you're moving in a different direction than you thought you were going to go. So my talk, I thought I was going to do at the podium. I'll stand behind the podium, it's big, I'm safe, I'm small, it's big. So I thought that would be what I would do. But this little voice inside said to me, I don't think so. Your talk is about vulnerability. What are you thinking? You need to be out there, out in front. And that was terrifying to me. I mean, quite frankly, it's just terrifying to be here. And why? You know, I asked myself that question, why? But as I was thinking about why am I afraid, you know, what's going on with that? I came up with a couple things that I remembered from when I was a kid. These are the sayings. Don't speak unless you're spoken to, number one. Children should be heard and not seen, number two. Well, guess how that programmed in my mind? It's not safe to be heard, and you better not speak. Okay, so program, running through my head. The last one that came to mind was, what will your neighbors think? What will the neighbors think? My dad, bless his heart, used to say that all the time. What will your neighbors think? I mean, you know, as kids we go, I don't know, I don't care. But the program goes inside and it says to me, well, then I shouldn't be seen. If I don't want the neighbors to think anything, I shouldn't be seen. So you can see my dilemma. Here I am, being seen, being heard, and speaking. So no wonder my ego was sending up signs of, oh my gosh, danger, danger, danger. So when our internal environment is playing old tapes, it's scary to be vulnerable. When those old tapes will go over and over in our mind, it can create fear, and then it can create resistance. Even in the safest environment, which is what I have here. So fear comes up, even though I'm safe in my environment. But my internal voice is saying, you're not safe, you're not safe, you're not safe. So that is the challenge. So just because I wanted to stay on track, I thought I better pull a way of mastery card. You know, I don't want to get too far off course because God's still laughing at me for standing here, thinking I didn't have to stand here. So this card was like so right at me. Nothing is uncomfortable, Sandy. It's just another opportunity to have an experience to broaden your capacity to love. Broaden our capacity to love by being vulnerable. How many of us would even think that? You know, vulnerable, I gotta run away from vulnerability. But it helps us. It's our guide, it's our helper to help us open our hearts and to bring in, to let out more love and to be the love fully that you are. So vulnerability is uncomfortable. It's downright scary at times. And mainly, of course, because we have those tapes running, constantly running, until we're ready to make a different decision and change our mind. And then when we change our mind, we can create a new experience. So I have a little slide for you. So this little bird's looking down saying, what are you throwing away? And the other little bird standing on a box is saying, oh, just some old ideas and beliefs that were taking up too much space. So when I looked at this cartoon, I thought, okay, so there it is. Not good enough, over emotional, that one's too, yeah. Failure, too short, that one I can relate to. So they're throwing those old beliefs in the trash can. And I really got a kick out of this because I could really relate. But I don't think we ever get to the bottom of the trash heap. I really don't. I think it just it recycles. And just like recycling, we toss it away, it recycles, and then it repurposes, and it comes out again. So here I am, repurposing all those old beliefs that are within me. So, I've just come to believe that allowing ourselves to be vulnerable, if we choose to do that, we just create a new relationship with our fears. The old patterns, we just create with our fears and our old patterns. And that sets us free. Just creating that new relationship with our fears can set us free. And it sets us free to rise up and move in a new direction. Move in a new direction with confidence and living more fully in a place of authenticity. So one of my favorite authors, you probably all know her too, who speaks about vulnerability is Brené Brown. I just love her. She so inspires me. And she's great if you ever have a chance to watch her on YouTube. She's just a wonderful speaker. So in her book, Daring Greatly, she moves us from seeing vulnerability as a weakness to seeing vulnerability as our most accurate measure of courage. It's a beautiful way to see it. It's our most accurate measure of courage. And she says, vulnerability is both the core of difficult emotions like fear and grief and disappointment, maybe uncertainty, and it's the birthplace of love, belonging, joy, empathy, innovation, and creativity. I think that's so amazing to think about that. It's the birthplace. So she goes on to say, when we shut ourselves off from vulnerability, we distance ourselves from experiences that bring purpose to our lives. So what that says to me is that vulnerability is essential. It's really not something that we can not do. It's essential. It's an essential part of creation. You look at it that way. It holds within itself the whole creative process. It goes from birth to death to rebirth in that process of our working through our fears. We have to die to those old feelings. We have to die to those fears. But then we're reborn. We're reborn again at a different level of consciousness as we move through those. So every time we allow that, every time we allow ourselves to die to those old beliefs, we are born anew with a new consciousness. And we raise our awareness to the true nature of the love that we are and the expression of love living as us in the world. So contrary to our cultural belief that vulnerability is a weakness, it actually serves a very powerful purpose in our lives. And when we look at it that way, it can be seen as a gift. Vulnerability as a gift. The purpose of which is to provide a pathway to open our hearts and to live our life more fully. And live our life more fully with resilience, because it's coming from inside of ourselves, that knowingness. So, not to be held back by our fears. We don't want to be held back by our fears, and with vulnerability, you have the opportunity not to be held back by your fears, but to propel yourself forward, propel forward into a more enriched and meaningful life experience. So another way of looking at this might be it awakens us to the illusion of separation. And it's guiding us back to union, back to the oneness with Source, with God. In the course of love, it says we move from an external directed to an internally directed experience of life. You and your life become one. And we heal ourselves and our beliefs in separation not by running away or denying our fears, but by facing them. And by bringing love to whatever arises. Thank you, Matt Kahn. Bringing love to whatever arises. In any given moment, in any given situation. And that's where transformation occurs. It occurs in that state. So when we surrender our will to God's will, and die to the old and give birth to the new, in love and in wholeness and in holiness. And it's in that place that everything becomes sacred. All of life becomes sacred in that place. When we release and surrender to the will of God. You know, I think it's kind of like sometimes I feel like it's the shell, we create this shell around us. And as we grow and we grow in our awareness, there's little cracks in the shell. And then the light really shines through. I love thinking about it that way because we're not going to break it open. We're going to crack it open gently and let the light come out. Let the light shine through. Our love and our light, they are meant to be shared, not to be kept within. And we have free will. And so whatever we choose about vulnerability, we can choose. We can choose to transform, or we can choose not to. It really doesn't matter to God. Because God is living as us, just the way we are. Every single one of us, just the way we are. And when we can really wrap our arms around that, it really gives us the courage to walk into that vulnerable situation and to deal with it from a place of love and a place of safety within yourself, that internal safety, not the external safety, although that's wonderful. There's an internal safety that happens in that way. So I have time to just tell you one story, and this is a funny story. I want to end this on kind of a happy note or high note. It's a story about me, so you're totally have my permission to laugh, because I will be laughing with you. So this is the story. My husband Lance and I went on our honeymoon to Hawaii. It's a great place to go on a honeymoon. That's not the funny part. The funny part started when Lance decided he wanted to go snorkeling. He loves the ocean, me not so much. So I said, okay, I'll go with you. So we found a really cool place to go snorkeling. So we get all geared up and we're ready to go and go into the water, and I'm like dragging behind, going, okay, I'm going, not really wanting to go. But I did. I said, okay, I can do this. So out I go into the water, and of course, panic struck, and I said, no way, I'm not going any further. I'm going back. He says, okay, that's fine. Go back. I'll watch you. I'll keep an eye on you. So I turn around, and I go to walk back to the shore, and a wave knocks me down. And I'm down in the water, groveling around in the sand, with sand getting everywhere that I didn't even want it to go. But the water's continuing to pound on me, and I'm like floundering around like a fish out of water, waving my arms and kicking my legs. And Lance is back there saying, honey, just stand up. I'm going, what? He goes, just stand up. You're fine. And I'm going, no, I'm not fine. And so there's a man and a woman walking along the shore. And the gentleman says, he yells out, do you need help? And Lance goes, no, she's fine. And I go, yes, I need help. Help me. So the man comes walking out, And he just puts out his hand and he says, just stand up. So I stood up and I looked down, and Lance would probably tell you I was in a foot of water. I swear it was at least 3 feet. I was not in very much water. So I walked to the shore. Just thanked the gentleman for saving me. I sat in the sand, and Lance went off snorkeling, and I just laughed. I just said, oh my God, I am so humiliated. I can't believe that just happened. So I want to draw an analogy to being, to vulnerability and that. How I see Lance in that, let's use it as a metaphor. How I see Lance was the spirit in me. Lance represents the spirit in the story. Spirit is in us, always saying, be not afraid. Be not afraid. Stand up. Move forward. Be not afraid. That spirit dwells in us, lives as us in the world. That's what Lance represents in that story. Me, I represent life. You get knocked down, you're growling around in sand, and the wave comes and knocks you over, you can't stand up, you can't get your balance, and everything goes haywire. Until you say, I need help. And then what happens? So you see the man and the woman walking along the shore. I could say that represents my masculine, feminine side. And my masculine side came out to me and just said, here, let me give you my hand. You can stand up on your own. By your faith, rise up. By your faith, rise up. That's grace to me. That is the most amazing feeling, to have that level of grace that resides within us. And all we have to do is ask. We just have to be willing to ask. So that's my little story. Thank you for laughing. But I think that, I think, for me, what I really, really hope to share with you is just to really invite you into this place of vulnerability. I mean, I'm shaking, right? It doesn't feel super comfortable, but I'm here, and I'm loving you, and you're loving me, and that's really all that counts, So I invite you to step into vulnerability with your whole heart. Really do it. Step into it, and know that you are always guided by Spirit that is within you. You are loved just the way you are, and that if you allow the power of love and grace to dance in your heart, it will guide you home. And remember that you were created of love, as love, for the very purpose of love. Thank you very much. God bless you all.